So, Robin, there seems to be some growth in the tiny house industry. What do you think's driving the tiny house movement today?
Well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, home ownership has become a thing that is difficult, especially for the millennials who are laden down with student debt. And to think about, a 30-year mortgage on a three or four or $500,000 home, that's just not possible for them. However, the possibility of a tiny house on wheels certainly works on their radar because it's more like a car payment than a house payment. And then also, there's a lot of people that aren't interested in a big house and mowing the grass and trimming the bushes on the weekends, but they're more interested in getting a lifestyle or getting their lifestyle back and being able to do what they want and still have a place that they can call their own. And so, between those two things and a couple of other initiatives, the tiny house movement is really no longer a fad, it's really a movement.
So, what will our viewers get out of watching the webinar today?
Well, I'm going to give an outline, a small outline of a path to financial freedom. Before I do, though, I just wanted to share a story from my childhood. We all have stories from our childhood that shape who we are and what we do, and so a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves are stories that run loops in our background, in our brain, in our past. And one story that I wanted to share was this story about my dad, and he sent me to the store with a 50-cent piece to buy a pack of cigarettes for him. Well, cigarettes at the time were 35 cents, and I happened to have that much in change. I used my money to buy the cigarettes and then brought them back to my dad, and he was looking for the rest of the change from the 50 cents, which I didn't have. So he ended up making me give him that 50-cent piece. Well, that loop, that story played out throughout my life in different ways. One way would be self-sabotage. I would get to a certain level and I'd miss key meetings or something because I just felt like I wasn't worth it or I couldn't make good decisions. And so I've had to change my definitions and the stories that I tell myself. One thing is the difference between being broke and being poor.
Tell me more about what you mean by broke or poor.
Well, broke, Clay, is a temporary condition. That's my definition. Broke being a temporary condition, and poor being a state of mind. And I have a couple of other definitions I'd like to share with you before we go on. One is passive renewable income or passive residual income. And basically, that's something you do today that pays you going forward for a long time. And then financial independence. What I mean by that is you have enough passive residual income coming in that you could pay your bills. If you got hurt and couldn't work anymore, you could at least cover your minimum expenses and you wouldn't have to rely on the state or your family for support. And then the last definition I'd like to go into is financial freedom. And what I mean by financial freedom is you decide today what your maximum lifestyle looks like. The biggest car, boat, house, lifestyle that you could ever want. So you don't get into the more syndrome of how much is enough, a little bit more. Once you've reached this financial freedom number that you've decided today, the rest can be given away to support foundations or your church. Not that you don't do it along the way for a small percentage, but after this number is hit, the rest of it can be given away because this is all you could ever want for. So that's what I mean by the financial freedom. And I just want to say that the scriptures say that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so I believe that there's not just a pie and I got to go get my slice. I believe in abundance, there's plenty out there.